I grew up working in the shop making toys, and my father made furniture, you know, in the 30s and started then, and it's always kind of been a part of me. And for me, it's almost more of a way of life than it is a business.
Well, the why Gallagher is the easiest part. The man who first introduced me to guitar played a 1967 G50. So I'd always known about Gallagher and followed it, visited the shop in the past, that type of thing. Because I even received some feedback and advice, hey, if you want to build guitars, you know, put your money into a shop and do that type of thing. But it was Gallagher that I really cared about. And I know it's the Gallagher family and the extended Gallagher family of people that own Gallaghers and care about Gallaghers, and they've been so receptive to me and so encouraging. But Gallagher is much bigger than I realized in the sense of what all it represents, the heritage of it, back to J.W., who was just a genius, I think. So Don is entering the original ledger into an archive that he's establishing with Baker County. So we made pictures of all the pages and reproducing it, because that's one of the things people are interested in when they come to visit. They want to look up their guitar. But there's so much history here as well when you see all the places. Here's London, England, here's West Virginia, here's Texas, South Dakota, New Jersey, Georgia, Florida, New York, Virginia, Illinois, all on one page. And here's actually Doc Watson's guitar. Mr. Doc Watson, Deep Gap, North Carolina. So it looks like 2 were made for him and 2 were made for Merle.
There are so many variables that go in to the sound of an instrument, you know, and everything has to kind of work together to produce a particular sound. That it's hard to ask like one little thing here and one little thing there. And I think if a person's doing that, you know, he's headed down the wrong path.
The mindset, I think, is more of a one-off, but we don't just take one and go all the way through with it. You know, I think when we build in batches, we're, you know, as long as I think it would work good for a very big company that was set up, the machines were very, very precise and every process was dialed in perfectly. It might work. But when you're building individual unique guitars, and a lot of them are custom, then you almost waste time. You know, you can't do the same thing over and over again. You know, when you take one guitar and you do a day's worth of work on it, I think you're being efficient. And then it hands off to the next guy, and then he does his day's worth of work on it. So in a sense, we're building in batches, but the mindset is more one-off, where we're seeing one guitar at a time and able to take that guitar where we want it.
There's a lot of people that have a lot of different ways of doing things. You know, you always it's good to work around a lot of different people, because a lot of people have different ways of doing things. You know, I'm always learning, always picking up something new that I might find works a little bit better in my toolbox, so to speak. I mean, if you don't pay attention to every single little thing you do, you know, I mean, when you do that, when you pay attention to every little piece of the process, then it all comes together and it all looks, you know, you get a better product, you know.
We just spent a little bit of time in the wood room, and that to me is like where the inspiration begins. You know, when you see an amazing piece of wood that's just one of a kind, that the edges are just really out there, the grain is out there, the colors, I mean, one that we just glued up, it's got blonde, peach, brown, and purple in it. It's all in the same piece of wood, you know. And it's like, you know, that is inspiring to me. And the idea that we get to turn that into something completely unique is, yeah, it's pretty special.
So when you ask about what makes a Gallagher, the headstock, people have commented about it. You can see it a mile away when you see it on stage. It stands out. And I really appreciate that about this uniquely Gallagher headstock. Will always be part of the guitars. People have even requested at times a different type of headstock, but then it wouldn't be a Gallagher. Every guitar has its own voice, but the Gallagher is really known, like this is a Doc Watson model, and it just has really nice balance across the sounds and great sustain and great projection. And so there's a pretty consistent Gallagher sound, and that's what I'm really happy to be preserving as well.
J.W. Gallagher once told me, I knew him, that built the Gallagher guitars. He was a friend of mine, and years ago he told me, he said, well, Norm, he says, if we could just take a needle, you know, and shoot 50, 60 years of age into one of these things, we'd be getting somewhere, but that's the one thing that we can't do.
The idea that some finishes are harder than others. You know, nitrocellulose lacquer is not very hard when it's first sprayed. You know, it takes years to get hard. So that's where they call the break-in period is partial. It's not just the wood, it's the finish breaking in and hardening up and contributing, I think, to the tone some.
Every guitar has its own unique sound to some degree. But we want to dial it in a little bit by keeping specs on tops in particular, so that when we're really happy with this, we can look at those specs about the thickness, about the sound quality of the top. And there is a way in which we're doing some testing, some audio testing, where we're keeping some numbers on the various tops to see, as they go through the process, what those specs tell us about the outcome.
We've had people to, you know, come from California or this place and that place so that they could personally place the order. It's, I think, you know, it's that type of personal involvement in what we're doing that is appealing to a lot of people and makes the business for us very enjoyable.
I wouldn't have done this if I wasn't very hopeful that this was going to work out and be successful. And I think of it in terms of the responsibility to Don, the Gallagher family, the Gallagher guitar brand, to continue that legacy beyond me as well. And I'm already thinking about
how do we really ensure that this guitar brand will always be here?